Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers on the broadcast today, endorsed by Mike Pompeo, Sheriff Joe Lombardo running for governor here for the whole show on the all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
A parade sets the stage for the greatest show in the biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada.
It's a legacy that began over 100 years ago and continues today. The Reno Rodeo. Still the wildest, richest rodeo in the West. Keeping it old school at the Reno Rodeo 2022, June 16th to the 25th. For tickets, go to renorodeo.com.
Liberals Steve Sisolak and Aaron Ford. Socialism out of control. Releasing violent criminals, special interests over our children, and crippling shutdowns on small businesses. It's time for a conservative approach. Republican Tisha Black. A mom who will put our kids first. A self-made businesswoman who will stop government overreach. And Tisha backs the blue. She'll get tough on crime. Tisha Black, the conservative choice for Attorney General.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, coming to you from Las Vegas, we are delighted to welcome back to the program Joe Lombardo. He's the Clark County Sheriff, and this is your third appearance on Newsmakers.
Yep.
And we really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
So we have a whole bunch of viewer questions that people have sent in once they knew that you were coming back on the show. So if I can, I'd just like to run through some of them and get your thoughts. So first one here, the endorsement of former President Donald Trump is certainly a big help in a Republican primary. Do you think it could turn into a liability in the general election, considering the divided nature of Nevada voters and the state's large numbers of Democrat voters?
Yeah, that's the question, right? That's the question that constantly gets presented when you embrace any endorsement, no matter who it is, whether they have divided the voting populace during their tenure as a politician or whatever it may be. Yeah, you take that into consideration, but to be honest with you, I think the independents are going to make a big difference in this space, in this election moving forward. Yeah, you know, granted the Ds have a slight advantage in registered voters, but the independents by the day and by the week are changing that paradigm, and I think that's going to be the more influential piece in this election.
Do you think that moms are going to have a huge influence in the sense that they were dealing with kids not going to school, they were dealing with kids not going to the prom, not playing sports, missing out on the social life? Is that going to play, do you think, big time in the turnout and the vote?
I'm glad you hit on that, because I think it'll have the biggest influence. We're seeing that across the nation as a result of parents getting involved in kids' education. We're seeing the failures or the deficiencies associated with education because of that awareness. You know, they're watching their kids learn online at the home, and they're saying, well, you're learning what? And so they've become created the most momentum in the voting space than any other particular demographic. And I'm interested to see what occurs here in the state of Nevada, because if it's similarly situated to what we've seen in the primaries in the states here in the past couple of weeks, yeah, they're going to have the largest influence.
Going back to President Trump for a moment, if you win the primary, will you ask President Trump to visit Nevada on your behalf?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I've said it, you know, previously his policies and his financial decisions based on the national budget and foreign policy, everything that goes along with the presidency. I think he did a fantastic job, a sound job. Unfortunately, he wasn't reelected. The country saw fit to go in a different direction, but his policies still stand the test of time. And we're seeing that with the increase in inflation across the board, the interest rates and commensurate to inflation, and what we're dealing in the foreign space.
You have a completely different style than President Trump, obviously. Yeah. You know, do you have concerns that that would play against you in that?
No, you know, you bring it up. I haven't really thought about it in that aspect. And yeah, we do have. He's a little more bombastic on his side, a little more vocal, a little more measured and wonky, I guess is the word I use. I pay attention to the details in this space, and I see the president a little more global and a little more hoping that the chips fall in the right spot, you know, as you progress through any situation. And I think that's as a result of my history, my resume, you know, being in law enforcement and investigations involved with law enforcement. And now as the head administrator of a big organization, the details matter. The details matter, especially in the long term. In the short term, maybe not inconsequential, but in the long term, we're seeing the results of not paying attention to details. And I'll segue into this, Sam. Paying attention to details. I'm sure you're probably going to ask about this North Shore debacle associated with that the current governor is married to.
Right.
You know, the failure in the COVID testing. That was lack of paying attention to detail. And as a result, we're going to discover people have passed away as a result of that decision. And you know, it's to the tune of $160+ million. What could we use that money in another direction, you know, during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic?
Okay, I mean, do you look at it as a lack of attention, or do you look at it as something potentially criminal?
Well, you can look at it from all those aspects, and hopefully the feds bring out all the details on that, and the public and the transparency piece that the current governor seems to profess that he's transparent. We'll see if all those details comes out. I know the public information requests are flying currently, and then we'll see what the feds do in that space.
You said that law and order is one of the key issues facing Nevada, along with education and economic diversity, and you said that Assembly Bill 236, which was a sweeping criminal justice reform bill passed by the democratically controlled legislature, is partially to blame for an uptick in crime. Specifically, the bill raises certain thresholds for drug and theft offenses to trigger felony charges. Yet your office, very influential in matters of law and order at the legislature, had the chance to testify against the bill but did not. Instead, your office gave neutral testimony. Why?
Yeah, I'm glad they presented that, because it's my opportunity to explain what happened there. Legislative process. A lot of things happen behind the scenes, not actually on the floor. You know, you got the different caucuses that are involved in decision making. You have the lobbyists involved in the decision making. There's a lot of nuances associated with bills, and that was a very comprehensive bill. It's very long. It encompassed all aspects of the criminal justice system. So it was a matter of negotiation. Myself and Steve Yeager had long conversations. That bill was way over here prior to those conversations.
For those on the radio, he's pointing way over to the side.
Oh, way over to the left, way over to the left. Okay, I'm sorry about that. And as part of those negotiations with my government affairs liaison, Representative Chuck Calloway, and myself and some other sheriffs and chiefs in the state of Nevada and Nevada sheriffs and chiefs, we were able to bring it a little bit further to the right and have a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve in that bill. We never got to where we were. But as a result of some success prior to the vote, we stood neutral because our fear was if we went negative, we said absolutely not, the majority, both in the Senate and the legislature, would have overwhelmed us on that. And we wouldn't have got anything in that space. And the situation that we're currently in would be twice as bad.
Would you want to lower thresholds for theft? Because the Retail Association, one of our proud sponsors, has complained voraciously about how much it went up to, that just invites people to be able to steal more. And then you saw in the Bay Area last Christmas, the mayor had to bring in the police to Union Square to be able to defend the department stores because there was so much theft going on.
Right, and as a result, many of those stores closed. They said it's not a good business model, right? But on top of that, Sam, they also included the inability for police officers to effect an arrest. You had to meet these unattainable criteria associated with the individual being charged with a misdemeanor that would rise outside of a citation to an actual arrest. So they basically handcuffed the cops in their ability to do the job. Imagine a cop responding to that type of incident, your livelihood, your business, and say, oh, this is the most we're going to do, and you see that individual that stole a significant amount of your inventory walk down the street with a citation in their hand, knowing that citation wasn't going to change behavior. He may or may not show up to court. And whether a bench warrant be issued or the soft judiciary would even dismiss it. Knowing that, how can you continue to do business? How can you provide a quality of life for your family or whoever, or your employees? You know all the nuances on business.
Okay, but let me ask you just a little detail. Soft judiciary, I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, soft judiciary, soft on crime.
Do you feel that way in Nevada?
Yeah, absolutely do. I experience it within the police department on a daily basis. Individuals that we think are bad actors are incarcerated by my police department and the other associated police departments here in Southern Nevada, and we see them back out on the street with a slap on the hand, and it's very frustrating for us.
Chris Hicks, the Washoe County DA, was on the program a week or so ago and talking about cash bail, and not so much complaining about that because it's the law, but the cost associated with that. What are your thoughts on cash bail?
I think cash bail should be remain. I mean, a lot of jurisdictions have completely rid of cash bail and the ability for people to post bail, and they said it's unfair. It's unfair to people of need. Okay, and they can't have equal justice to an individual that has the wherewithal or the monies or the pocketbook to post bail as a result of their crime. But everything can be prevented by not committing the crime, right? And I've said that in the immigration space.
Well,
I've said that in everything else.
Except for innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, well, we all know that what goes along with that, but quite often the bail statute or the bail standard is set on a specific crime that you've been arrested for to include your history. And so that changes the whole dynamics of whether you're able to do it or not. And I think it's an incentive. I think it's an incentive for people to show up in court.
If Steve Yeager is reelected, the odds are quite well in his favor that he will end up being Speaker. Can you work with him?
Yes, I can work with him. Interesting enough, I had a conversation with him recently, specifically to that discussion, and we both had a gentleman's agreement, a handshake, and said that we will work together.
All right, let's take a break. More with Sheriff Joe Lombardo running for governor after this timeout.
Politicians, they hide behind commercials and social media, trying to act tough. A bunch of keyboard cowboys. They talk tough about immigration, but none of them have locked up or deported a single violent criminal. Not one. I've deported thousands. They closed schools, tied the hands of police, and wrecked our economy. I'm Joe Lombardo. I'm running for governor because we can do better. Nevada deserves better. Let's take our state back.
Joe Lombardo for governor.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your air conditioner breaks down today. We fix it today. Why sweat for days while your air is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get cool again? For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 or see us online at nevadaheating.com.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Joe Lombardo. He's the Clark County Sheriff, running for governor, and this is his third interview. For those that think he doesn't go out and do interviews, yes, he does. And you've been very kind. From our initial emails together, you've been really great responding. The Review-Journal reported that when speaking about economic diversity, you said the state needs to focus on bringing in more high-paying jobs in the manufacturing and technology sectors. Would you be willing to offer a package of tax breaks to those companies in order to get them to Nevada?
Yeah, and the reason why I can say yeah quickly on that, it's already codified in law. There's tax incentives associated with companies as long as it's based on the number of employees they bring in. It's based on the product they're producing, the amount of product they're producing. Also, the wages are commensurate to a standard of living within the state of Nevada. Additionally on that, built into that is clawbacks. If they're not meeting their performance measures, if they're not putting the foundation into the ground and have long-term influence on the generalized economy, we have incentives or clawbacks is the best way to describe it, to lean these companies and get our tax revenue back. And plus, there's a limitation on that incentive. You know, it's time limited, and our ability to receive a commensurate size tax base, whatever the size of the company is, and their revenue stream with the C tax after the time has expired. Yeah, I would promote that.
Obviously,
you know, quite often that's called corporate welfare, depending on who you talk to, and I don't see it that way. And the reason why I don't see it that way, because the proof is in the pudding. We've seen that with Panasonic, we've seen that with Switch, we've seen that with Tesla in northern Nevada, and as a result, their economy is booming. They're not limited in the space of gambling associated in northern Nevada, similar situated, well, not similar, opposite situated here in southern Nevada.
Yeah, and northern Nevada has been able to maintain its gaming base, not as large as it was before, but much more successful for the companies that remained, because a lot of those companies that were there before weren't particularly that good at what they were doing.
Right, and you got to remember, I'm running for governor, so it encompasses the whole state. It's not just southern Nevada, you know, the way I am as the sheriff. And that plan, that idea, built the idea for Apex here in southern Nevada. So similarly situated in Trick versus Apex, and hopefully we can spread the wealth.
Okay, so the key, all right, so bring up one of my favorite topics, because I was involved with Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center from 2005 onwards. The trick there was to put in the infrastructure. That was the difference, because Tesla, for example, came to Apex. They saw it, there was nothing there, there was no infrastructure. They came to TRI, there was water, there was power, there was sewer, there was fiber. It was all there. They could get a grading permit. In fact, Ryan Juden has picked up a lot of the things that Story County has done for North Las Vegas because of that.
Right,
so,
you're right.
You know,
and that's what's occurring in Apex now. That was the argument prior to it. There was no infrastructure there. There was no underground infrastructure, and that is being completed as we speak. So.
All right, different topic here. Another question that came in. In your mind, was there any fraud or cheating in the 2020 presidential election that would have changed the result?
I'm glad you couched it that way. Yes, there was cheating, okay? To the level that would have changed the result, I don't believe so. And the reason why I say I don't believe so is because the evidence hasn't been presented. I work in an evidence-based profession currently, and that makes my decision more often than not. And if it was brought forward, I know it ended up in the court system. The court opined on it and said no, there wasn't a significant amount of fraud to change the election. And the Secretary of State, Barbara Sagaski, got engaged in that, and she likewise said the same narrative. So I would have to support her decision.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back more with Sheriff Joe Lombardo after this timeout.
Liberals Steve Sisolak and Aaron Ford. Socialism out of control. Releasing violent criminals, special interests over our children, and crippling shutdowns on small businesses. It's time for a conservative approach. Republican Tisha Black. A mom who will put our kids first. A self-made businesswoman who will stop government overreach. And Tisha backs the blue. She'll get tough on crime. Tisha Black, the conservative choice for Attorney General.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker, and you've got a lot of convention space and meeting breakout space for people. Tell us about what's available.
Well, we can handle a group up to about 250, and anywhere as small as 10 or 15. So it really depends on what you're looking for, what the customer's looking for. We're open to anything. It's a beautiful drive, and if you live in South Reno, it's probably about 30, 35 minutes, so it's real easy to get to. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Sheriff Joe Lombardo of Clark County. He's running for governor. Recently, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Committee on Fiscal Affairs approved a $250,000 taxpayers' payment to the Review-Journal stemming from the newspaper's lawsuit over Metro's reluctance to release reports, video, and audio connected to the October 1, 2017 mass shooting. As sheriff, why did you choose to ignore state public record statutes, especially when by ignoring the statutes, you cost taxpayers $250,000 on top of the money spent in court trying to keep that information in the dark?
I didn't ignore the statutes. A lot of those statutes are vague in that they're subject to interpretation. It has been a matter of record, matter of pattern and practice on ongoing investigations. We don't release that because it could have an influence on the actual investigation, tainting of evidence, so on and so forth. But in this case, we had volumes upon volumes upon volumes, hours upon hours of data that we had to comb through, we had to evaluate, and there's a cost associated. There's human capital associated, and the argument is, well, taxpayers pay for that human capital. Taxpayers pay for that human capital to fight crime in my police department, not to go through paperwork all day and watch video all day. So subsequently, we have to stand up a unit to address all the public information requests as a result of the law that was passed. And that's very laborious, and there should be a cost associated with that. I'll stand by that all day. A lot of people say, well, no, that's all part of the system. Well, you got to determine if it's egregious request. Do we have to build a database to accommodate the request? There's a cost associated with that. And the redacting of all the stuff to protect people's personal information and in some cases their identity. So it's very laborious, and the lawsuit encompassed none of that. The lawsuit says, no, we don't care about that, and we want the judge to make a decision on that. And I think I had a duty to the victims of 1 October to protect them in all aspects of that, so they didn't have to relive the issues associated with that. And our department was very progressive in the release of the investigation sooner than we have ever done before, and posted it on the internet. And an interesting piece on that, 99% of all that was recovered by the RJ and the eventuality of that lawsuit, they didn't even utilize. So that's very frustrating. And you got to remember, those particular businesses are for profit too. It's not for the good of just the people, it's also the good of their business. And I have to measure all that as the head of an agency, and the protection of the victims is my priority.
I want to ask you, and this is somewhat of a personal question really, this is your 3rd time on Nevada Newsmakers, as I mentioned earlier. If you're elected governor, will you continue to do programs like this on a fairly regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's important. We talk about the transparency. You just talked about the lawsuit with the RGA. I think it's These programs give the citizens access to an official that they voted for, that they feel is responsible for their taxpayer money, to be transparent and to speak to them. And you can't be everywhere all the time as a politician.
Of course.
You make that decision as a politician to enter into that space, and I think it's a duty for you to do shows like this. I got a question for you. Why don't you ask the current governor what's his problem?
You know, we have asked and invited the governor since he was elected. The last time he was on the program was right before the election when he became governor. He was on the program going back to his time on the county commission, and there's never been a bad word between he or I ever, but for some reason his staff have not been able to arrange a time for him to be on the program. He is always welcome anytime, but so far he has not been able to manage it in 3.5 years of being governor. So we hope he will do it.
Maybe you're not liberal enough. Yeah.
You know, I'm nothing. I'm not in anybody's party. I'm just doing Nevada Newsmakers. Sheriff,
you know what? I appreciate your effort too. I mean, you bring a voice to the public that they quite often don't have access to or don't hear. So.
Well, I thank you for that, and I thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, sir, and we'll be right back.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. One of the things I love about the Carson Valley Inn here in beautiful downtown Minden is CV steak. I have eaten here so many times. Tell folks what they can expect when they come here to eat.
It's a beautiful room, great service. We have certified Angus beef, seafood, lamb, a great range of appetizers, and wonderful desserts. Jean-Michel's done a great job of selecting some beautiful wines for us. The customers love it, and we've got a great selection of cocktails as well. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at nevadanewsmakers.com. You can also check our archive going back to 2005 on our website, again, nevadanewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next show.